Welcome, friends, to another journey into the heart of Stoic wisdom. Today, we're diving into a deceptively simple yet profoundly powerful question. What personal secret should you never share? At first glance, it might seem odd to frame the topic of secrecy through the lens of Stoicism. After all, Stoics champion honesty and transparency. Yet, the ancient masters understood that some inner treasures are meant to be guarded, not broadcast. Why? Because there are certain vulnerabilities that, once exposed, can undermine your resilience, your equanimity, and your sense of self-rule. Have you ever blurted out a confession during a moment of insecurity, only to regret it later? Perhaps you revealed a deep fear, a hidden sadness, or an unformed dream, only to feel worse afterward. You're not alone. As Seneca cautioned, a confession reveals our weakness rather than our strength. In today's hyper-connected world, where every tweet and post can echo forever, knowing which pieces of your soul to keep close is more essential than ever. Over the next several minutes, we'll explore 6 personal secrets you must never share, guided by the principles of Stoicism. We'll draw on the timeless teachings of Marcus Aurelius, Seneca, and Epictetus, incorporating modern anecdotes to bring these lessons to life. By the end of our exploration, you'll have a Stoic toolkit for safeguarding your inner stronghold, maintaining serenity, and cultivating genuine peace of mind. Secret 1. Your deepest fears. Have you ever felt your chest tighten at the thought of uttering your worst fear out loud? That knot in your stomach is a signal, your psyche's alarm bell, warning you that these fears, once aired, can grow far larger than they deserve. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Our life is what our thoughts make it." When you reveal your deepest anxieties, whether the fear of failure, abandonment, or simply not being enough, you hand over the reins to external judgments and interpretations. Suddenly, your private dread becomes public property, open to commentary, ridicule, or manipulation. And who among us hasn't winced when someone else wields our vulnerabilities as weapons? Think for a moment of Seneca's own life. Exiled by imperial decree, he carried the heavy secret of mortal danger. Yet he never flaunted that terror before friends or foes. Instead, he recorded it in private letters, distilling his fear into insight that death itself need not be feared. If we view it as a natural end, nothing more, in your daily life, you can acknowledge fear without broadcasting it. Try this at night, in a quiet space. Whisper your fear to the darkness. Give it a name: imposter syndrome, loneliness, the fear of rejection. And then imagine placing it, like a pebble, into a calm pond. Watch the ripples fade. Why does this matter so much? Because fears are not facts. They are judgments about what might happen, projections of worst-case scenarios. Epictetus insisted, it's not events that upset us, but our judgments about events. When you verbalize your fear to the world, you solidify that judgment, as if to say, this is my reality. But internally, privately, you can question the judgment. Is it true that failing this task would destroy me? Would it matter in 5 years? You shift from victim of your fear to observer of your mind. Let's consider a modern anecdote. Imagine a young teacher named Maya who dreaded being laughed at by her students. In a staff meeting, she confessed, "I'm terrified they'll see me as worthless." What happened next? A few colleagues nodded sympathetically, but the office gossips spun it into Maya can't handle a classroom. And soon her confidence crumbled. Had she kept that fear in her journal, instead examining its origins, reminding herself of past successes, she would have preserved her authority and calm. Stoic practice offers you tools to engage fear without exposure. First, the premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of evils. Before a challenging meeting or performance, imagine things going wrong. You stumble on your words. You face criticism. Then mentally rehearse your response. If they laugh, I'll smile and continue. This exercise inoculates you against shock and teaches you that even embarrassment can be handled with dignity. Second, the view from above. Picture yourself as a tiny figure on a vast landscape, all your worries rendered insignificant in the panorama of time and nature. Marcus Aurelius urged us to see each trouble as but a speck in the cosmos. When you recall this perspective, your fear of a fleeting moment, an awkward pause, a disappointed glance shrinks to near nothing. Finally, build an inner dialogue of compassion. Epictetus suggested we treat ourselves as we would a dear friend in distress. If your friend confessed a paralyzing fear, you wouldn't mock her, you'd remind her of her strength. In your mind, practice that kinder voice when the fear surfaces. Speak to yourself, I've faced challenges before. I'll face this one too. By safeguarding your deepest fears, acknowledging them in solitude, exploring them with Stoic practices, and responding with self-kindness, you transform them. From potential cripplers into teachers, you keep the power of interpretation firmly in your own hands, rather than scattering it to the winds. This is how you honor your vulnerabilities without letting them define you. How you remain master of your inner citadel, unshaken by the storms of possibility. Secret 2. Your unexpressed desires. Have you ever felt that flutter in your chest at the thought of admitting your secret ambition, only to clamp your mouth shut? That hesitation is a natural warning. Once aired, desires can balloon into demands upon the world. And as Epictetus warned, people are disturbed not by things, but by the views they take of them. When you proclaim a desire, whether it's a promotion, a creative breakthrough, or the perfect relationship, you're effectively telling the universe, this is how I must be fulfilled. But life rarely unfolds on our schedule, and unmet desires can become chains that shackle our peace. Think of Marcus Aurelius, sitting in his grand palace, yet writing privately. I have often wondered how it is that every man loves himself more than all the rest of men, but yet sets less value on his own opinion of himself than on the opinion of others. He understood that true contentment arises not from public acclaim of one's goals, but from an inner alignment of values. When you blurt out your secret wish for viral fame or instant wealth, you invite the fickle court of public opinion into your soul. Their applause is fleeting, their criticism venomous. Let me share a modern anecdote. There was a writer named Daniel who yearned to publish a best-selling novel over coffee. He told his entire writers group about this dream. Suddenly, each critique session felt like a referendum on his future bestseller status. A word of praise sent him soaring, a hint of doubt crushed him. His unvoiced longing had become a fragile balloon, one prick, and it would pop. Instead of nourishing his craft, he chased validation, then wallowed in disappointment. Stoic thought offers a gentler path. First, practice desire detachment, the art of holding wishes lightly. Seneca advised, he is most powerful who has power over himself. To apply this, keep your longing for success alive in your mind, where you can fan its spark without fanning anxiety. Ask yourself, if I never achieve this, would my life be utterly barren? Often, you'll find that the very process, the writing, the creating, the striving is what brings meaning, not the outcome. Next, cultivate inner dialogue about your desires, but with a Stoic reframing. When you notice that a craving arises, I want that promotion, transform it into a question. How can I serve best in my current role? Marcus Aurelius practiced this reframing constantly. Every outward loss he met with an inward question. What virtue can I practice here in your life? Every unspoken desire can become a prompt. How can I grow right now? This shift moves your focus from external reward to internal mastery. Let's consider another example. A graphic designer, Mia, longed to launch her studio. She whispered this dream only to her spouse. Together, they broke it down into small, daily steps, networking, honing her portfolio while avoiding any grand announcements. Over months, her silent ambition took shape, brick by brick. When she finally revealed her studio opening on social media, it was already a reality, not a mere idea. The applause she received felt grounded because the work was done, not just dreamed. Lastly, remember that some desires are better shared with a trusted circle, not broadcast to the masses. Epictetus recommended seeking counsel from those who share your discipline. Confide in a mentor or a close friend who can hold your secret safely and offer guidance without turning your hope into public expectation. That way, you preserve your focus while still receiving the encouragement you need. By keeping your deepest desires gently concealed, nourishing them in solitude, reframing them as invitations to growth, and when appropriate, sharing only with a trusted ally, you retain the clarity and courage that Stoicism champions. You transform longing from a burden into a quiet fuel for purposeful action. In doing so, you remain the architect of your fulfillment, rather than a performer in someone else's theater. So today, ask yourself, which one of your secret desires needs this Stoic shield? Tend to it with care, hold it close, and watch how it guides you, quietly but powerfully, toward your highest self. Secret 3. Your past regrets. Have you ever woken in the middle of the night, heart pounding, replaying a moment you wish you could undo, a harsh word spoken in anger, an opportunity you let slip away? That familiar ache is regret, reminding you of life's lessons. Yet when shared too freely, regrets can become a chorus of self-condemnation, both within you and in the ears of others. As Seneca wisely observed, every truly valuable thing follows from an inner act, not an outward display. By keeping regrets private, you transform them from a public spectacle into private teachers. Imagine Marcus Aurelius, emperor and philosopher, pondering his failings in the privacy of his journal. He didn't gather courtiers to confess every misstep. Instead, he wrote, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant." He reframed regret into preparation, turning what he could not change into wisdom about human nature. In your own life, you, too, can repurpose regret into foresight without airing it in communal conversation. Consider a simple, modern tale. A young manager named Alex once led a project that failed spectacularly. In an attempt to be transparent, he walked into the next team meeting and laid bare every mistake: missed deadlines, poor communication, flawed assumptions. His honesty was applauded at first, but soon the team viewed Alex as a cautionary tale. Rather than a leader, they hesitated to follow his direction. Seeing each new plan as doomed by past failure, Alex had transformed private regret into a public stigma, unwittingly undermining his authority. Instead, embrace what the Stoics call reflective release. Find a quiet moment, perhaps during your evening walk or at the end of your day, and journal the regret that weighs on you. Write it in full, the context, your choices, the outcome. Then, ask yourself, what did I learn? How can I apply that lesson tomorrow? Once you've distilled the insight, symbolically release the rest. Tuck the journal away, close the chapter, and allow your mind to rest. Why is this private ritual so powerful? Because regret, when shared, often invites unsolicited advice or even ridicule. Epictetus reminded us, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. If you broadcast your past mistakes, you risk being defined by them in others' minds. By keeping your regrets in your reflections, you remain the author of your story, free to edit and grow without outside interference. Let's deepen the Stoic approach with premeditatio mali, the premeditation of adversity. Rather than ruminating on past missteps, practice imagining them beforehand. Before you undertake a challenging conversation or project, visualize possible errors. You might stumble on your words, overlook a key detail, or face unexpected pushback. Then plan your response. If that happens, I'll pause, listen, and ask clarifying questions. In doing so, you transform potential regret into a proactive strategy. Another anecdote: a software developer, Lena, regretted the day she harshly criticized a colleague's code, driving a rift between them. Instead of confessing this at the next team lunch, she privately reviewed the incident, identified the root cause, her perfectionism, and resolved to practice constructive feedback. She then quietly apologized in a one-on-one, focusing on her intention to support rather than to scold. Her private reckoning and targeted action rebuilt trust far more effectively than a public airing ever could. Finally, cultivate self-compassion in your inner dialogue. Seneca encouraged treating yourself as a friend. When regret arises, speak gently. I made the best choice I could with what I knew then. Acknowledge that each error was a stepping stone to growth. By offering yourself empathy in solitude, you fortify the resilience that carries you forward. By honoring your past regrets in private reflection, extracting lessons, rehearsing for the future, and practicing self-compassion, you keep the power of interpretation in your own hands. You transform regret from a shackle into a springboard for virtue. In the words of Marcus Aurelius, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Your regrets, kept close and resolved internally, become the stepping stones on your Stoic path. guiding you toward a life defined not by past mistakes, but by wisdom and inner strength. Secret 4. Your inner dialogues. Have you ever noticed that little voice, sometimes encouraging, sometimes scolding, chattering away behind your decisions? That inner monologue is powerful, but when you spill its every word to the world, you risk inviting others to co-author your self-narrative. As Epictetus taught us, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth so that we can listen twice as much as we speak. By keeping your private commentary private, you preserve the authority over your mind. Think back to Marcus Aurelius pacing the halls of his palace, wrestling with doubts even as he ruled an empire. He didn't summon his advisors to debate every fleeting thought. He recorded them in his journal, challenging each one. Is this judgment true? Is it helpful? In your own life, you might notice thoughts like, "I'm not good enough," or "they must think I'm foolish." These aren't facts, they're passing clouds in your mental sky. When you share them publicly, "I think I'll embarrass myself," you solidify them into reality, both for yourself and for your listeners. Consider a colleague, Sarah, who habitually announced her second-guessing in meetings. "I'm not sure this idea makes sense." What happened? Soon, her team began doubting her proposals before she even finished presenting. By broadcasting self-criticism, Sarah gave her inner skeptic a megaphone and others tuned in. Instead, imagine Sarah noticing that thought as if it were a bird passing by. There's that voice again. She acknowledges it, but she doesn't stand on the balcony and introduce it to the crowd. Stoic practice offers us the technique of silent witnessing. When a critical thought arises, pause for a moment, label it silently. There goes imposter syndrome. Picture it as an animal in the distance, perhaps a hawk circling overhead. You see it, note it, but you don't chase it, and you don't invite it to perch on your shoulder. This simple act of observing without reacting weakens the thought's grip on your emotions. Let me share an anecdote. There was an engineer named Ben who constantly berated himself inside his head, "I'm a fraud. I'll never understand this code." After a particularly stressful release, he confided in friends, laying bare every harsh self-judgment. Overnight, those friends began treating him as someone who needed help, offering unsolicited tutorials and undermining his autonomy. As soon as Ben's inner criticism went public, others judged him by it, and he lost the confidence he once had. By contrast, Epictetus recommended we speak to ourselves as we would to a dear friend. When your inner critic whispers, "You'll never be ready," respond in your mind, "I've faced challenges before. I'm capable of learning." This compassionate dialogue remains within you, strengthening your resolve without providing fodder for outside commentary. In this way, you become both the listener and the loving guide of your psyche. Another potent Stoic tool is mental imagery. Assign each negative thought a symbol: a snarling dog, a deflated balloon, a flickering light. When the thought appears, visualize that symbol, then let it drift away, rather than letting it bark or erode your confidence. By externalizing and symbolizing the chatter, you depersonalize it, breaking its identification with your self-worth. Finally, cultivate constructive inner debate. If you catch yourself thinking, "I'm going to fail," counter with evidence-based questions. Have I ever learned something unfamiliar before? What resources do I have now that I didn't then? Marcus Aurelius turned his doubts into questions of virtue. How can I act justly in this moment? You can turn yours into invitations to growth. By keeping your inner dialogues private yet addressed, not ignored, you maintain the sovereignty of your mind. You refuse to let passing judgments become a public spectacle, and instead, you nurture a calm and steady inner voice rooted in reason and kindness. As Seneca reminded us, it is not the man who has too little, but the man who craves more that is poor. Likewise, it is not the mind free of thoughts that is strong, but the mind that governs its inner conversation without letting it spill outward. So next time you hear that familiar self-critique or anxious murmur, pause, witness it, question it, tame it privately, and watch as your inner calm becomes an unbreakable fortress, guided by Stoic clarity and compassion. Secret 5. Your true emotional triggers. Have you ever noticed how a single tone of voice or a passing comment can send your heart racing, your thoughts spiraling? That's your emotional trigger at work, quietly waiting to hijack your peace. The Stoics teach us that we are disturbed not by events themselves, but by our judgments about them. By understanding and guarding these triggers, you keep the reins on your mind. Marcus Aurelius, in his private reflections, urged himself to remember that it is not things that upset us, but our opinions about things. He recognized that, when others criticized his decrees, it wasn't the criticism itself that wounded him, but his judgment. I am inadequate. In your daily life, you might hear a colleague's offhand jab asterisk, that's not how we do it, asterisk, and feel a flash of indignation. Ask yourself, is this comment really about me? Or is it a reflection of their mood, their pressures? The slight shift in perspective can diffuse the trigger before it detonates. Consider a modern anecdote. A project manager named Rosa discovered that whenever a stakeholder questioned her timeline, she felt a hot bolt of defensiveness, as if her competence were under attack. Every question became a personal challenge, every meeting a test of worth. Instead of examining the inquiry, she took it as a slight against her. Productivity dropped, morale sank, and Rosa felt perpetually on edge. She had handed over her calm to anyone who pressed that button. Stoicism offers emotional reconnaissance, a deliberate mapping of your vulnerabilities. In a private journal, list the situations that regularly stir strong feelings. Is it criticism, unmet expectations, a tone of condescension? By charting these triggers, you become aware of the mines hidden in your emotional landscape. Knowledge of these patterns is the first step toward disarming them. Next comes the practice of the Stoic pause. Epictetus counseled, between stimulus and response there is a space. In that space lies our power to choose our response. When you feel your chest tighten or your jaw clench, pause. Take 3 slow breaths. Remind yourself, this is only a judgment, it can be changed. In that moment of calm, you decide whether to react with defensiveness or to respond with curiosity. What is this person asking? How can I address their concern constructively? Let me share another story. Julian, a customer service lead, realized that his trigger was perceived rudeness. If a client's email felt curt, he'd draft a fiery reply, only to regret it later. One evening, he practiced the Stoic pause. He set aside his phone, went for a short walk, and recited silently, "The tone is not an injury. My judgment is." When he returned, he replied with measured empathy, and the client's anger dissolved. By intercepting his trigger, he preserved both his calm and the business relationship. Stoics also employed premeditatio malorum, imagining potential upsets ahead of time so they wouldn't catch them off guard. Before a tough negotiation, visualize the hardest challenge, a raised voice, a dismissive gesture, and mentally rehearse your response. Remain steady, restate your position, and hold your composure. When the imagined upset arrives, it feels less like a trap and more like a familiar scene you've already mastered. Finally, cultivate a compassionate inner voice. When a trigger does set you off, treat yourself with kindness afterward. Seneca wrote, "No man is more unhappy than he who never faces adversity." If you react poorly, don't beat yourself up publicly. In private, acknowledge, "I felt provoked. I'll learn from this." Use regret not as a whip, but as a lesson planned for next time. By charting your triggers in solitude, practicing the pause, rehearsing challenges, and responding with self-compassion, you transform hidden vulnerabilities into opportunities for growth. You reclaim mastery over your mind, so that no offhand remark, no impatient tone, no unmet expectation can bulldoze your serenity. In the calm that follows, you stand unshaken, the true Stoic champion of your emotional landscape. Secret 6. Your deepest values and future plans. Have you ever felt the electric thrill of unveiling your grandest vision, only to have it deflated by someone else's doubt? That moment of unveiling can feel like standing on a cliff's edge, exposed to the winds of public opinion. Marcus Aurelius, writing in the quiet of his tent, understood this vulnerability. He counseled himself, "Keep your mind free from all but the essential." Your most cherished values: integrity, compassion, mastery, and your boldest ambitions: launching a business, writing a novel, building a life of service are essential. They form the blueprint of your life. By announcing them prematurely, you grant outsiders the power to reshape your blueprint into something less sturdy. less aligned with your true self. Imagine Seneca, composing private letters about the calm he found in simple living. He never made grand pronouncements at the Senate about his yearning for asceticism. Instead, he lived by his values quietly, letting his actions speak. In the modern world, consider a friend named Elena who dreamed of founding a non-profit to mentor underprivileged youth. She was eager, posting her vision on social media. "I will change lives by next year." But the flood of questions: how will you fund it? Do you have experience? She shifted her focus from her purpose to the noise. The momentum stalled, and enthusiasm waned under the weight of unsolicited critique. Stoicism teaches strategic discretion. Protect your core convictions like a rare gem polished in private, revealed sparingly. Start by clarifying your values in a personal journal. Ask, what principles guide me when no one is watching? What legacy do I wish to leave? Write them down. Then, hold them firmly in your mind's vault. Nurture them through daily practices, morning reflections, evening gratitude that reinforce your commitment without announcing it to the world. When it comes to plans, practice the Stoic method of stepwise revelation. Epictetus reminded us, first learn the meaning of what you say, and then speak. Before telling peers, mentors, or even close friends about your next big move, share only the immediate, actionable step. I'm exploring space in my house to set up a small workshop. By doing so, you build momentum quietly. When it's time for a broader announcement, my studio opens next month. It lands on solid ground, supported by actual progress, not distant aspiration. Let's return to Elena. After facing discouragement online, she changed her approach. She kept her nonprofit's mission close to her heart, mentioning it only to a trusted advisor. Together, they mapped out small wins, a pilot mentoring session, local sponsorships, and a community event. Each time Elena ticked a box, her confidence grew. When she finally unveiled her program to the public, complete with success stories and tangible results, it resonated deeply. Her discreet nurturing of the plan created authenticity, inspiring support rather than skepticism. Another Stoic practice is the view from above. Envision yourself years from now, looking back at today's intentions. Would you value the applause of acquaintances or the quiet satisfaction of knowing you stayed true to your path? This cosmic perspective shrinks the urgency of public validation and magnifies the worth of inner coherence. Marcus Aurelius would ask himself, will this choice matter in 10 years? By applying the same question to your plans, you sift out ephemeral desires from enduring values. Finally, guard your blueprint with inner dialogue and self-compassion. Doubts will surface. Maybe I'm not cut out for this. When they do, speak kindly. I'm learning as I go. Every step clarifies my path. Keep this conversation private. In solitude, you train your mind to trust itself, to evolve without outside pressure. By cherishing your deepest values and plans in the sanctity of your reflections, nurturing them quietly, revealing them deliberately, and testing them against a broader perspective, you preserve the purity of your purpose. You remain the sole architect of your destiny, unshaken by the shifting winds of other people's expectations. In this way, Stoicism guides you to cultivate an inner citadel of clarity, where your most precious convictions and dreams can flourish, undisturbed and unbreakable. As our exploration draws to a close, let's pause and reflect. Stoicism isn't about building walls between yourself and the world. It's about discerning which inner treasures to share and which to securely store. By keeping your deepest fears, unexpressed desires, past regrets, inner dialogues, emotional triggers, and core plans to yourself, you cultivate inner sovereignty, the bedrock of tranquility and purposeful action. I encourage you today, choose one of these 6 categories and commit to honoring its privacy for the next week. Journal daily, practice silent witnessing, and notice how your sense of calm and focus grows. As Epictetus reminded us, first say to yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do. Thank you for joining me on this Stoic journey. If these insights resonated with you, show your support by liking this episode, sharing it with a friend who could use a little inner armor, and subscribing for more practical philosophy. Until next time, keep your inner citadel strong, your mind clear, and let your actions, not your confessions, speak your truth. Stay serene, Stay strong and remember, some secrets aren't meant to be shared, they're meant to be mastered.